I am so happy to bring you a Tiara tool called Being Guided by Love. I'm Allison Miller, and I'm one of the managing partners of Tiara International. And this is a tool that was created early in the pandemic at a time when there was an enormous amount of fear and uncertainty and a whole new way of living for almost all of us on the planet. Well, here we are 2 years later, and there is still an enormous amount of uncertainty and things happening on the planet that are disturbing and concerning and having a huge impact on millions of people's lives. So this tool is still feeling highly relevant. So I'm going to take you through it and hit pause whenever you need to write down your answers to the questions. I'll take you through the Tiara tool. It's feels so incredibly important when we made this tool early in the pandemic, and very much now, that we realize that our well-being, each of us as individuals, is so essential to what is actually needed on our planet. That we need leaders who are well, who are connected to themselves, inside themselves, who can listen to themselves, who can consciously choose to operate in a way that really feels good and is aligned with their values and their inner inspiration. We need people who are conscious and awake. And without a sense of well-being, we tend to be in more of a survival mode. It's much easier to end up leading in a way that's more reactive, where we're less in charge. So when we nourish and hydrate, literally and metaphorically, our well-being, we're so much better poised to lead in a way that feels true to us. So the world needs you. So that's why we're going to focus on your well-being. So let's look at well-being through a lens of, in a particular way, through a lens of love, and think about, where does well-being actually exist? So it exists in the moment. Well-being is now, and then now, and then now. And it is elusive, yet it's always present, whether we're present to well-being, being present or not. So one way you can really nourish your well-being is through the practice of meeting the moment as it is, whatever is occurring. In a sense, you are allowing the moment to be as it is, as if you'd chosen it. And you're also receiving yourself as you are, allowing yourself to be as you are in the moment. There's this spaciousness around what's true. That is what opens up the doorway for you to respond to what's occurring outside of you and inside of you with kindness, in a gentle way, with love, holding it in a loving way. As you're a curious scientist with the heart of a grandparent meeting a grandchild for the first time. You're inherently loving towards what you notice and you observe. This is a foundational well-being practice. We're receiving ourselves in the moment, holding it in love. We're not abandoning ourselves. So let's actually start by checking in just to see how we're doing. This is a good foundation. How is what is happening in the collective, in the larger world, in your community, whatever realm feels relevant for you, and also in your personal life? How's what's happening right now impacting your well-being in a positive way? I know early in the pandemic, people felt like that the being home, running around less, having less to do, not commuting, not going out so much, they really actually realized, wow, that wasn't working for me. Like, there was a sense of well-being that came online. So you may have experienced all kinds of positive outcomes in the current context in which you're living. What are those? What are ways in which your well-being has actually been enhanced? Sometimes we overlook this. That's why we're pointing it out here. So hit pause whenever you need to. Take the time you need to answer these questions. The second question is the other side of the coin. How is what's happening in the collective and in your personal life impacting your well-being in a negative way? Any way in which you feel your well-being is being harmed, anything that's been really difficult for you, take a little bit of time just to acknowledge that. That's important. And that shows you what needs to be held in love, where attention is needed. So life can be like a hurricane, right? All the things that have been going on. I mean, there's been a lot happening. And our well-being is in essence, the eye of the storm, where the skies are clear and the winds are calm. You can find your way, no matter what's happening, back to the eye of the storm. So I want you to think about a recent time when you really felt caught in a hurricane of your life. There's just so much going on and you were more reactive, stressed out, maybe not operating in a way that really felt true to you, that felt like you were aligned with your values. What was that recent time when you were caught in the hurricane and lost contact with the eye of the storm? You can write down what that is. And once you know what that is, I want to just take a moment and think about, what were you believing when you were out in the hurricane? How did you feel and behave? What actions were you taking or not taking? I know for myself, I really can get caught in this belief that there's not enough time and I've got so much to do and there's not enough time and I've really got to hustle. Just a basic thing, but it happens to me all the time. And I feel stressed, I feel pressured, and I behave in like a multitasking, rushing around, not really working in a calm and deliberate way. You know, I'm moving between different things. I'm totally spacing out on certain things that would make a difference for me. Those are all signs that I am not in the eye of the storm. And by the way, there's nothing wrong when you're not in the eye of the storm. It happens to us all, usually on a daily basis. The opportunity is to return, to find our way back to the eye of the hurricane. Okay, so when you're in the hurricane, it can be very helpful to ask this question. And this is really what the heart of this tool is about. What would love have me do? What would love have me do? And just go with your instinct. There's not a right answer here. Don't overthink it. What would love have me do? When I'm out in that hurricane, oh, it would have me stop and get quiet. One thing I do is I make a list of monotasks, very specific tasks, little tasks with a beginning and end that are close together for me to actually work on one at a time to slow and calm myself down. Okay. So here's some questions to help you think about this. If you're asking the question, what would love have me do? What would you believe through the lens of love? How might you feel through the lens of love? Behave. What actions would you take or not take? If you're filtering it through, what would love have me do? And give yourself some time. This, you might require many journal pages, by the way, to answer this, to really let yourself think about, if love were in charge of me, what would it have me believe? How would I feel? How would I behave? What would be things I would practice? For example, love might have you share with someone else that you're struggling and be vulnerable and ask for support. Versus when we're out in the hurricane, sometimes we can be more in a survival, do-it-yourself kind of mode. So take whatever time you need to answer those questions. And the natural outcome of this is for you to get clear on, what are some eye of the storm practices? What are things that you know that when you do them, they help you return to a stance of really being much more loving and honoring of yourself and of the work that you're trying to do, or whatever you're up to, the relating you're aiming to do with people in your household or in your community. What are the things that when you find yourself out in that hurricane are things that you can do? I like to joke with myself, I call it the stop, drop, and roll, which is like noticing when I'm out in the hurricane, and I'll say to myself, stop, drop, and roll, which means stop, notice what's going on outside of you, inside of you, and settle down, and then make a conscious choice about the best way to proceed. So stop, drop, and roll is one of mine on my eye of the storm practices. Sometimes I'll also just lay down on the floor in Shavasana, which is like, the corpse pose in yoga. That's my favorite yoga pose. Just lay down and do that. Because that will make a difference for me. So take all the time you need and think through, what are your go-to eye of the storm practices? Those are acts of love that will actually really nourish and support you to move back in the direction of where your well-being exists, which is back in the eye of the hurricane. All right. I would love to hear what happens as you use this tool. Thank you so much for taking the time out for yourself to do this.